I told my husband to come home in the evening on May 4th, 1941. I and my son went to the train station and welcomed him. When he asked why we hadn't met at the main station, which was 2 kilometers closer, I replied that we wanted to take a walk. We talked all night, still hoping that we would go to Romania. In the morning, I had to leave for school. I told him, "You go to the police, change your military booklet, and go straight to Tighina on foot. Don't wait for any train. From Tighina, you can take a train or a bus to Chișinău." When he asked, "Why do I have to do this?" I told him it was late and I had to go to school. I bade him farewell and left. I signed the attendance register, and when I tried to enter the classroom, I felt dizzy and fainted. The children got scared and started crying. The principal and the assistant principal came. When I woke up, I found myself in the staff room with the doctor, a very good friend of ours, by my side. The principal, very kindly, arranged for me to go home in the school carriage, accompanied by the doctor, while he would cover my classes. I entered the house with the doctor. My husband was shaving. He was surprised to see me and asked why I had come home. I told him that I had asked for permission to go with him to the militia office, which made him very happy. The doctor said he had come to see him. My husband washed up and was about to take his bag and leave when the door opened and Jmur entered with one of our neighbors. He placed his handgun on the table and, in a commanding and triumphant tone, ordered us not to move. He conducted a thorough search, even cutting open the mattresses. He kept us in this state for 4 hours. I was fortunate to have the doctor by my side, and each time I fainted, he helped me recover. In the end, Jmur, who was exhausted from finding nothing, no incriminating evidence, ordered my husband to follow him. He took my husband away, dressed only in a coat. I asked what else I should give him, but he said he didn't need anything. Then he took off his wedding ring and watch and handed them to me. As they were leaving the yard, our son was just coming home from school. Seeing his father arrested, he began to cry and beg Jmur not to take him, saying he knew his father was innocent. Jmur pushed him and he fell. In the evening, I went to the security office with some food and found out that my husband was being held at the district office for questioning. For 10 days, I went to the security office at 2 p.m., then again in the evening, bringing food for my husband, but I couldn't find out anything about him. Each time I met with the head of security, I would argue with him and say, "If the law allows you to arrest innocent people, then take me too." He would very politely reply that investigations were underway based on the complaints received and that it was possible my husband might come home soon. But from the militiamen I learned that they had beaten him severely during the interrogation, accusing him of being a spy. After 10 days, they transferred him to the prison in Tighina. I found it very difficult to go to school and face the assistant principal who had deceived me so cunningly. However, the rest of the staff was very sympathetic and even genuinely supportive. When I came home, the emotional pain was so heavy that I felt like screaming. But the friends I had, doctors, lawyers, and their wives, continued to visit me in the afternoons, despite knowing that visiting the family of an arrested person was considered as complicity. They stayed with me until late, never leaving me alone. Under these circumstances, I managed to get through to the end of the school year. My students, who were in the 4th year of high school, were examined by committees, and all 51 of my students were promoted. At the end of year celebration, I was praised, photographed for being an excellent teacher, and featured in the local newspaper, receiving thanks from the school. I felt no joy from any of this. The only thing I was satisfied with was that I was done with school. On June 1st, I went to the local security office directly to the head of security and asked him to tell me what was happening with my husband and where I could find him to deliver changes of clothes. He told me that he was at the Tighina prison and that the investigations were still ongoing. Among other things, I said to him, "Now that I have fulfilled my duty to your state, you can take me too, as it would be fair for the wife to suffer alongside her innocent husband." He looked at me in surprise and told me to enjoy my summer holiday in peace, as they had no need for me. The next day, I sent our son to stay with relatives, and I, along with a cousin whose husband had also been arrested, went to Tighina to find out about our husbands. We spent 10 days from morning until evening at the prison gates, but we couldn't learn anything. We were horrified to see how those heavy iron gates swallowed hundreds of people several times a day. Eventually, a militiaman took pity on us and said, "It's pointless to stay here. Go to Instructor Vasiliev, Office 95, who is handling their investigations, and ask for permission to speak with them and give them what you want." We went there and encountered an arrogant young man who, after much pleading and crying, allowed us to provide them with clothes, food, and money. When we asked about our husbands, he replied that the investigations were complete and that we would have a final answer in 10 days. We returned home on June 18th, 1941. During our stay in Tighina, another great injustice occurred throughout Bessarabia. On June 13th, at 4 a.m., security forces burst into the homes of wealthy people, ordering them to prepare for departure within an hour, taking only money, gold, and necessary belongings. Thus, thousands of people with their families were deported. At Tiraspol, the train was stopped, and all the men were taken out of the carriages and forced to hand over their gold at the station in exchange for receipts, claiming it was to prevent theft along the way. The receipts for the gold were given to the wives with the promise that they would receive the gold back at their final destination. The men were detained in Tiraspol, where they were imprisoned, while the women and children who remained on the train were transported to the Siberian forests. There they were encouraged to build homes and were then forced to work on collective farms or state enterprises. The names of the intellectuals who had not been arrested yet were put on a list, and on June 21st they were taken away in a similarly brutal manner. I entered the house as if it were a tomb. The house was empty, and I was completely devastated, not knowing where to turn. But God, who often sends unexpected help, did not abandon me. Half an hour after I entered the house, I heard a noise outside. When I went out, I saw that my sister-in-law, whose son-in-law had been arrested from my home, had arrived along with my son. They had come with a horse-drawn cart to see how I was doing. It was a great relief for me not to be alone. I recounted everything I had done in Tighina, and we decided that the following day we go and stay at my relative's place for 10 days, after which I would return to Tighina to see the results promised by the instructor. On June 19th in the afternoon, a heavy rain began that lasted through the entire night and all day on June 20th. It was impossible to travel the 25-kilometer distance by horse-drawn cart. We waited for the rain to stop. This rain proved to be a reprieve for those scheduled for deportation on June 21st, as a few intellectuals had managed to escape the first wave of deportation. However, for me, this rain was a disaster.